Hey everyone, it's me, Rai, and in this video I'm going to be covering the watercolor medium called gum arabic. Gum arabic is the sap from the acacia tree. The acacia trees grow in a band stretching across Africa, and the biggest supplier of this acacia sap is in Sudan. If you're an artist, you've probably heard of gum arabic because you use it in your watercolor. The watercolor is made of it, and I'm going to be showing you how you could use it as a medium, but it has tons of different uses. The food grade one is used for certain health benefits, and also it's used in confectionaries. It's used in chewing gum. Envelopes used to have a little bit of gum arabic, so you could lick it and it wets it and basically becomes a glue when it's moist. That's why it works so well as watercolor. It acts pretty much like a glue to hold the pigment together and to the paper. So in my other video where I talk about what watercolor paint is, we talked about how it is pigment and a binder, the binder being gum arabic, and then a little bit of a moisturizer, either honey or glycerin. And now I want to show you how you could use more gum arabic in your watercolor paint to change the viscosity of it and change the characteristics of it. So this shape I'm painting in right now is just a stone shape. I'm thinking of something just really organic, so you could just get the idea of what traditional watercolor looks like. This is Winsor & Newton's professional watercolor. So it's a really high quality paint. It's packed with pigment, and I used a little bit of water to melt down the watercolor tube paint, and you could get a nice, beautiful, even wash very easily with it because the formulation is just great. The pigment to gum arabic ratio and whatever additives they use to kind of make the paint flow really well. So watercolor already has gum arabic in it. So what happens when we add more gum arabic to this watercolor? Well, you'll see right away it's a lot thicker, so the viscosity has changed, and it's going to flow differently now too. I'm going to just stir this in a little more, and then I'm going to paint in a similar pebble or stone. And this little stone shape, you could see already, it has a painterly quality when I'm painting it in. The brush strokes hold a little more. It's not bleeding as much. You'll also notice the color seems a little bit more vibrant. I'm not sure how much you could see this on camera, but in person, I could really tell that it's a lot more colorful. I'm going to notice it even more when the paint dries on them, that the one with more gum arabic is a little bit more colorful. So if you're going to paint a rock, if you wanted a smooth rock, you could use no gum arabic. If you wanted something more with more texture, you could use a little bit gum arabic in there. Also, gum arabic will add a sheen to it, which helps enhance the color a bit. Some people don't like the sheen. It looks wet, but when you touch it, it's actually dry. But you'll notice the gum arabic really brings out the color a bit more. You could always paint on a little bit of gum arabic on top of watercolor that you feel kind of dried, less saturated than you like. And you could also use the glossiness of it to make areas of your painting kind of sink in. Things that are very matte tend to pop forward, and things that are more glossy tend to recede. So you can see here on the stone, I'm just painting the little bottom part of it with gum arabic to make it a little glossier. It's also making it darker because it's wetting it, but also when it dries, it's still going to have that darker look to it. So there's so much you could already do with just that one aspect and attribute of gum arabic. But there's a lot more to cover, and one of my favorite parts about gum arabic is how it makes things easier to remove. So I'm going to put a little bit of water on both little ovals and let it just dissolve it a little. and it'll make it so much easier to lift out. You could see lifting it out without the gum arabic, and then this one on the bottom has gum arabic. See how easy it lifts out? It almost makes it pure white again. So for those of you who really like to do a lot of lifting in your abstract work or realist work, you might want to consider adding a little bit of gum arabic. You don't have to use as much as I did, so it's really glossy, but just a little bit will make it a little bit easier to kind of lift out. If you want more of a natural, more soft kind of look, don't use as much gum arabic because the watercolor already has gum arabic. It's going to lift out a little. That's what's great about watercolor as a paint, is that you could lift color out and kind of rework it. But if you do like nearly removing all your whites and without using like art masking fluid or something, you could use gum arabic in your paint and lift a lot of it out. Let's take a closer look. So on this stone, I'm just wetting it again. This is the one without a lot of gum arabic, without the added gum arabic. And this one is the one with the added gum arabic. And with the extra gum arabic, it's just going to lift up a lot easier. Now, another cool way to lift out watercolor paint is to paint the gum arabic down first. And these are techniques that go all the way back to like Turner used gum arabic as a way to kind of lift out areas. And what you could do is you could paint the gum arabic in. It's going to dry almost clear. It's just going to have a tiny little tinge of like beige to it. Maybe a little yellowy beige, but otherwise it dries pretty clear. I'm going to do a little spotted rock down here, so I'm going to put little spots. I'm going to hit it with the blow dryer until it's completely dry. I time-lapsed that so you didn't have to wait through that. Gum arabic will also slow the drying time, so that's something to keep in mind as well. I could see where the gum arabic is on there because it gave it that sheen. Now first I'm going to paint it in with no gum arabic underneath. Just my classic little pebble shape again. This is a very classic shape in a lot of abstract work, this round blob, oval blob. Very easy. Then I can paint it over the gum arabic and you'll see immediately it just resists it. Now if I work this enough, or if I let the moisture sink into the gum arabic and try to rework it, the gum arabic will start to lift up a little bit into the paint. So I'm just going to briefly, on this one, on the bottom one, I'm just going to briefly kind of touch it with the watercolor paint. Now I also had these little rocks I wanted to paint on the side, so I'll do a little one like right here. Get that all in. Super easy and smooth. And this one, oh no, maybe you want to paint like a robin's egg or something with more texture. You could put little spots of gum arabic. You don't all just have to paint a shape. You could paint a texture that you want to resist. Here, blow drying again. And try to lift out a highlight on this top one. The paper got pretty stained with this color. It's seeped into the texture of it, and it's a lot harder to lift it. Where the gum arabic one, this always blows my mind how much the gum arabic just seals the paper, protects it. So you could really go in, and I'm going to try again on this top one with a paper towel. I'm really pressing hard because I'm trying to get as white as possible. And the one on the bottom, I'm going to press just as hard. And you'll see it'll nearly completely wipe out. It's just almost pure white again. I'm going to try lifting out a little bit out of the small ones as well. Could wet it. If I try to do the same thing as the rock below, it's just really hard to get it really light again, where with the gum arabic texture you could easily lift it right out. I think you get the picture on this. It's great for lifting up color. So what else can it do? One thing gum arabic also does is it makes the watercolor more transparent. Now watercolor is so transparent already, especially colors like this, that the pigment is a transparent pigment. But when you add gum arabic, the way it suspends the pigment makes it work in more transparent even. So it makes it better for glazing. So I'm going to blow dry these blue spots, and I'm going to glaze in a little bit of magenta on top to create a purple. The one on top again is going to go in like I usually do, with just the water tube paint and a little bit of the water. Remember, the paint has a little gum arabic, so it's good for spreading. It will flow really nice and it'll stick to the paper well once it dries. But on the bottom one, we're going to add even more gum arabic, so you can see how transparent it feels. I'm trying to make the same value for both, which is a little hard, but the top one is just the one with the water with no additional gum arabic. And you can glaze with it because it has the water in there. It has a tiny bit of gum arabic that's in the tube. And that's how you'd glaze it. You get a beautiful soft purple. Now I'm going to add gum arabic to my paint. And remember, it's going to have a little bit more texture to it. It's going to hold the brush strokes. It's not going to bleed as well, but it's going to go in a lot more transparent. You can see already the color is a lot more vibrant as well. But it works well for glazing in color on top of another. This is something that's also hard to see on camera, so I hope you have an opportunity to try it out, but it creates a lot more depth. Let me see if I could hold it up. You get a little bit more depth with the glazing when you have gum arabic versus if you don't have gum arabic. It's just more matte and flat. Gum arabic also changes the spreadability of the paint, the bleeding, I should say, of it. So I painted down some water, and now I'm dropping in some paint. This is Winsor Blue Red shade, and it is bleeding really fast and a lot. Very beautiful watercolor, the way it just bleeds and spills everywhere. But if you want to slow down the bleeding a little bit, you can add a little bit of gum arabic to your watercolor. So I have some water and paint on my brush and a little bit more gum arabic. And when I paint it in, it's just not going to spread as much. It's still going to spread, but it's going to hold after a little bit. So you can see it's kind of spilling out and bleeding a little, but it is really holding and settling kind of fast because it's just thicker. I'm going to tilt it so you can see it still bleeds, but it holds the little shapes a little more than, as you can see above, that one's just completely dispersed now. If you want to add texture, I added a little bit of gum arabic to this, and you just get a different texture brush stroke. They're more even when you use a brush stroke, whereas if you use it without the added gum arabic, what happens is you get a little pooling in your brush stroke. See that? And they're all different darknesses. Whereas if you add gum arabic, it kind of evens out the paint stroke more. Let's take a close-up look of what's happening when you add gum arabic. I'm pouring in some of the gum arabic. It's this beautiful honey type consistency. And I'm going to add a little bit of watercolor. I'm using the tube paint because this will just show it a little better. And when I mix water with the tube paint, you'll see how instantly the watercolor paint from the tube will spread into the water and just bleed and run through it immediately. So here's a little bit of water. And as soon as you touch it, it just starts bleeding and swirling. See how it creates these little traveling, smoky kind of line work? the way it bleeds through. But then when you add the gum arabic, it really gets rid of any of the streaking and bleeding that happens. It kind of homogenizes the color more. See on the right side where the color is more homogenized, and on the left, there's still really dark parts to the fluid and light parts to the fluid, and it's swirling around. So on a larger scale, if I wet this paper with water, I have it on a little bit of an incline. I'm going to get brushes filled with paint. Can you guess which one has gum arabic in it and which one does not have the added gum arabic? So you're right if you picked the one on the top, the one that's spreading a lot more and bleeding a lot more. That's the one without the added gum arabic. The one on the bottom, I added a bit more gum arabic, and even on an incline, it's spreading a lot slower than the one without the added gum arabic. If you ever botch a watercolor, I would recommend saving it and cutting it up and saving little tester strips like this. And I did a test on this. The one on the left, this is time-lapse by the way, but the one on the left, I used no gum arabic to it. It's just the watercolor paint out of the tube with a little bit of water. I painted the water first and then I dotted the paint in. So you can see it's very soft. It bled out really well. And this one here on the right, this one I added gum arabic to the paint. So I painted down the water and then tapped in the paint that was mixed with extra gum arabic, and it didn't bleed as much. It still has soft edges, but it's really, they kept their shape. In my own work, I haven't really experimented as much with gum arabic and final pieces, except for this with details. So if you see, this is the watercolor with just a little bit of water. I painted it in, and what happens is the water tension holds up and beads into a little bead. So then you get this uneven detail stroke. And that little bead of water, when it dries, is going to be a lot darker than the other parts. Now I added a little bit of gum arabic, and when you paint in these details with a little bit of gum arabic, the brush stroke is much more even. It's going to puddle a little bit, but not nearly as much as if you weren't using gum arabic as a medium. So for details, I would recommend, if you want a nice even stroke throughout and not uneven, add a little bit of that gum arabic. If you ever noticed your brushes when you first get them, they're also kind of stiff on the tip, like the bristles were dipped in a glue or something. Well, they kind of were. They're dipped in a gum arabic solution. So you have the gum arabic, you can just melt it with water, and that gets the gum arabic out. That protects the bristles in transit and keeps you from getting the brush all crazy. If you have a brush that has these crazy little hairs that stick out, I kind of ruined this brush by being really rough with it one day, painting a abstract painting. Now I have these stray hairs. Even after I wet it, they don't stick together. It doesn't come to a point. Well, I could put out a little bit of gum arabic with a little bit of water, and I'll run my brush through the gum arabic, and that little bit of gum arabic will act like a glue to hold all the bristles together so that I can reshape it, lay it out to dry, and it'll kind of retrain the bristles. As long as the bristles aren't crazy damaged, it'll help you get those bristles trained back to working into that point again. Here's a brush a few hours later when it's all dry and it's all stiff, as if I just got it brand new, all packaged up with the gum arabic in there again. And I'm going to wet it again to see if the bristles are behaving again. Let's see. Yep, no stray bristles. They were right over here somewhere, and they're good. If you have any questions about gum arabic or anything I missed, please let me know. I'd love to cover more gum arabic techniques if you have any you'd like to see. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment.